Hey everyone, welcome to this conversation on using AI to leverage your job hunt. My name is Esteban Sanchez. I'm a marketing strategist at CareerBeacon, and I'm joined today by Ryan Porter, head of product of CareerBeacon. So basically, this whole conversation started because we had a couple of chats about how could job seekers actually use AI in an efficient way to send job applications. And we ended up talking a lot and coming with this guide that is going to help you step by step with using ChatGPT and using artificial intelligence to send better job applications. For starters, the first question I had is, there has been a lot of buzz about AI. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody is mentioning that AI is going to be big in different spaces. But what does that mean for job seekers? How is AI going to impact the world of a job seeker? What do you think?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was watching this interview between Sam Altman, who is the former CEO of OpenAI, and Alexis Ohanian, who is the founder of Reddit. And Alexis asked Sam, like, hey, like, what are we going to be talking about in 10 years when it comes to AI? And Sam was just like, we're not going to be talking about it because it's going to be so baked into everything that we do. Like, it's not going to be this thing where like AI. And I think like for some of us, like myself, who went through that first cycle of the internet coming out, like we can look back to like pre-internet and then like post-internet, at least like commercially available. Every house has internet. Like that's what I'm talking about. And it's like funny. Like we thought about like how we talked about the World Wide Web back then. And like, I know that we're going to like cringe at the way that we're talking about AI now, like next year or in 2 years, because it's going to be so automatic. So like, I guess like that's the first thing I wanted to address. Like everyone's talking about AI, and probably in 3 or 4 years, like no one's going to be talking about AI because again, like I believe like Sam Altman, like it's just going to be part of everything and it's going to be baked into our processes. And so like, when I look at this through the lens of a job seeker, I look at like all of the different things that a job seeker is doing and like where AI might be able to like speed things up or like scale things up or like give insights where they didn't have insights before. I think like job seekers get so bogged down or caught up in like the logistics of the job search, right? Like go to the job board or go logged into LinkedIn and filter the jobs and, oh yeah, what am I looking for? And it just becomes this thing. And there's kind of blinders on sometimes. And I think what AI can do is help like expand certain things and allow them to get into the process of finding jobs that match their skills, qualifications, interests, their direction a little bit better. So all of that very long-winded way of saying the job seekers like can and should be augmenting their job search process at every step of the journey with AI. And so like what I mean is like right off the bat, I think when people are searching for a job, in their brain, they're like, I have this experience. I'm looking for this job. And they go to these job boards. Like for myself, if I'm looking for a new job, like I'm going to go to a job and be like, senior product manager, head of product or whatever, like, you know, I've got that term that I want to look for. I put that in the search bar or the search box and I'm looking for those jobs. But I think that people sometimes fail to recognize that a lot of different companies call those different roles different things. And that if you have experience in this column, it actually means that you'd be a great fit for jobs in this column, but they might just not be on your radar. So like very, very, very first thing that I would do as a job seeker looking to use AI in my job search, one, I would get a ChatGPT premium account, pay the $20 a month for a couple of months during my core job search stuff. And I would literally start off by being like, here's my resume, upload my resume and say like, take a look at my resume. Here are the jobs that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a product manager job. What are some other job titles I should be exploring? And what are some other job boards that might have those roles available? Right. And then ChatGPT comes back and it'll be like, hey, based on, you know, your job title that you're looking for and your previous work experience, here are like 5, 6, 10, 15 other job titles that you might want to take a look at. And now right away, the net that you're casting for your job search has expanded like 2-3x, right? And I find that chat actually does a really good job of like giving job boards that you might not be thinking about, right? That's just not top of radar. You might just not even know about. And chat will be able to return and say, oh, there's this little like, product forum over here. And they actually have some job postings. Or there's this design forum over here. And they actually have job postings there as well. You might want to take a look at that based on your experience and your qualifications.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think a lot of job seekers see AI as a way to leverage how they send applications, but maybe some of them just have not considered that AI could be a way to expand their job search as well and to find different opportunities that they didn't think of. So I think that's a good starting point. And another question I had for you is when you talked about speed, because obviously AI is going to speed up the process in a lot of ways, but what about quality? Do you think the quality of applications is going to be impacted by AI due to the speed of the whole process?
Yeah, we're already seeing it, right? Like go on to the subreddit, I think it's called Recruiting Hell. And you'll see like the charts that people are uploading there. Like I applied to 500 jobs and I didn't hear back from 496 of them. I think like, first of all, that's giving like a macro kind of lens on the problem in general. Like the fact that someone can send out 500 applications is wild to me. And now the flip side of that, you've got recruiters and companies who are ingesting all of those applications and resumes. Like go on LinkedIn, go to apply for a job. Sometimes it'll be like 1,700 people have already applied to this job. Like what? How does anybody deal with that? So I think that like right now, quality is taking a hit, right? Because it's become so easy to apply and so easy to filter. So I think we're seeing this game of cat and mouse, right? Like I can use AI to do this. And then, well, the other side goes, well, I can use AI to do this. And the other side goes, well, I can use AI to do this. And they're just like playing cat and mouse right now. And I think we're going to see that for the next maybe couple of years, right? As we sort things out and try to figure out how to really use these tools to improve quality and to reduce the amount of time from both sides just spent on garbage, really. And I'm not talking about people that are garbage. What I'm talking about is like, there's a bunch of jobs that people are applying to that they shouldn't be applying to. And then there on the company side, like there's a bunch of people getting filtered out of the application process that shouldn't be getting filtered out of the application process. But because both sides are just completely overwhelmed, there's just a lot of like waste. And that's what I meant by garbage. It's a bunch of resumes and opportunities being like thrown away because there's just so much quantity right now and the quality is taking a hit.
Yeah, I agree. And then I think the challenge is going to be finding ways to stand out through all that noise, because obviously, as we were saying, bots are fighting against bots kind of, and job seekers, like the job seekers that are really going to thrive are the ones that can use AI to take it to the next level in terms of quality as well. So going back to the whole job seeker journey we were starting to talk about, after a job seeker uses, for example, ChatGPT to look for potential new opportunities, new job boards, and different types of jobs, what would be the next step that a job seeker should take after identifying those new opportunities?
Yeah. I love this question, right? And like, remember, this is just my opinion, right? This is not like the way that it has to be for everybody, but I'm just thinking like if I was doing this, is first I would expand my understanding of what kind of roles I might want to consider, maybe expand the job boards that I'm using, like we talked about in that first question. And then what I would do is I would actually use like my favorite tool within ChatGPT. There's a tool called Data Analyst, and it's actually put out by ChatGPT. And so I would go into the Data Analyst tool and I would actually create a spreadsheet, not in that tool, but outside of that tool, I'd create the spreadsheet that has like job title, company name, job description, notes, or something like that, right? And I would start to like go through those job boards using those new job titles. And anytime I find something that I think is a fit, I would copy and paste and add it to those columns. So like company A, job description A, right? Company B, job description B, whatever, right? So you go through that. I fill this spreadsheet with as many opportunities that I think I might want to consider and that are a match for me. And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about the 500 jobs. I'm talking about taking a little bit of time, going through and figuring out if these are the things that you actually want to spend some time on. Then what I would do is I would put that spreadsheet into the data analyst tool in ChatGPT with my resume. And I would say, here's a spreadsheet of jobs that I think that I'm a match for. Compare these jobs based on the job description and my resume and give me like a match score out of 100 based on what you see in my resume and what you understand these jobs are asking for. And rank them, right? And so ChatGPT will actually loop through all of that data and comparing it to your resume on each hit, and it's able to say, okay, job A, company A, job description A, I think you're an 85% match. The other thing I would ask it to do is give me a two to three sentence summary on why I'm getting that score, right? So you get these great things back where it's like, okay, you get an 85% here, and the reason it's 85 and not 100 is because they asked for this thing and you don't have that thing, but you have this other thing that we think, or it thinks, ChatGPT thinks would be transferable, right? So it goes through and it starts ranking all of these. That's what I would do next to just get an understanding of like, okay, of the ones that I think I'm a match for, can I get an analysis done on like just like keywords and experience in these pieces? Like, am I actually a match for that? Like just on paper. And that's probably the next step that I would take there, just to help me understand which ones I should probably spend maybe a little bit more time on, and which ones maybe, oh, I didn't realize this as I went through it my first time. I'm not a fit at all for that one. And so really at the end of the day, you're with a shortened list of jobs that you want to maybe apply for.
Yeah, I think that sounds like the next logical step. And it is important to highlight, as you already did, that this is our opinion as CareerBeacon and how we think that things could be done right. But obviously there's like 1,000 ways to approach AI and 1,000 ways to do it, which takes me to another question related to the prompts that you could use with ChatGPT. So basically a prompt, for those listening that are not familiar with the term, is just that snippet of text or that question or that request that you're going to type to ChatGPT to get the response you want. And the quality of the things you ask definitely impacts how ChatGPT is going to respond to you and to your request. So talking about prompts, what do you think are the best practices for job seekers to write efficient prompts on ChatGPT?
But I'll tell you what I do when I don't know how to approach a prompt. I actually tell ChatGPT my situation. I say, look, I want to use ChatGPT to do this thing and to get these outcomes, but I want to make sure that I get a prompt that allows me to do so. Can you suggest a prompt that would help me with this outcome, knowing that this is what I need to tell ChatGPT to help me with? And I found that like it does a pretty good job of like at least seeding the prompt or that direction. And yet somewhere where we probably should have started is what a prompt is. So I thank you for bringing me back there, or bringing us back there. But a lot of times when I get stuck, I ask ChatGPT to help me based on the outcome. Here's what I want to achieve by this thing, or here's what I want the output to be. Can you please help me write a prompt that gets me there? The other thing that I've noticed is a lot of people are publishing their prompts. So going on to X, right, is a great place to find how people are using prompts to do certain things. I'm seeing a lot of prompts being added to LinkedIn from different people saying, hey, here's how I approach this problem. Here's a prompt that I find works. And also the ChatGPT subreddits are really good as well in terms of helping people, play with prompts and understand what makes a good prompt and what can help improve a prompt. And the other thing that I'd mention about the prompts to ChatGPT as well is like, I think for me personally, the thing that I love about getting to use ChatGPT for, part of my day-to-day and thinking through some of these pieces, I get to ask it all the questions that I'm just like too embarrassed to ask another human being, right? Because I'm like, okay, someone's going to hear me say these words out loud and be like, what are you talking about? Or like, you don't know that? Like we all go through that, right? Like, I'm afraid to ask this question, right? Like, ChatGPT, I don't think is judging us on the other end of this. If it is, we're not seeing it, right? But like, it's not like, I can't believe you asked me that question, Ryan, right? Like you can ask it all of those questions. And so like, even when you think you've got a great prompt, you put it in, ChatGPT gives you this output, and then like you have a follow-up question that wasn't part of your real prompt, but it kind of got like a new thought got triggered by seeing the response. You can then put that in as a follow-up question, and like there's no judgment, which is, I think, kind of a cool place to be, like from an enablement perspective, and just allowing people to like discover, which I think is really cool about it.
Definitely. And I think something really valuable about what we've been saying so far is that ChatGPT is not only a tool that helps you draft your resume or helps you draft a cover letter. It can do way more than that. It could answer to your questions. It could ask you counter questions. As we were saying, it could show you jobs that you potentially didn't think about, and then it can show you if you are a match for those jobs or not and why. So you can take it a step further, and obviously prompts are a big part of that. But if you're feeling a little bit lost about prompts, don't worry about it, because actually in the guide that we're launching today for job seekers, we do have a couple of sample prompts that you could use to leverage your job hunting journey. So if you're stuck with prompts, as Ryan was saying, you can first do a quick search on X or different platforms where a lot of people publish their prompts, or you can have a browse through the guide we made where we suggest a couple of prompts to get you started with that. And then going back to the use of ChatGPT, there's something I wanted to ask you, Ryan, as well, related to the bunch of tools that we're seeing out there in the market. So besides like OpenAI and the ChatGPT subscription, I'm seeing that there's a lot of products coming out where they help you draft your resume. You just put like some basic bullet points and they throw out a resume for you already formatted and everything. Or other AI tools that actually leverage ChatGPT technology, but they just brand it and they claim to do it differently, but it's the same ChatGPT technology behind it. But I guess my question is, the market is being flooded with a lot of new tools that promise a lot of things and promise to send bulk applications and stuff. What would be the difference or the benefit of just using the ChatGPT account and doing the job for yourself versus just using one of these tools that promises to send, 200 applications in 2 minutes?
Yeah. Look, those tools exist, right? And I'm actually a firm believer that those tools need to exist so that we can get on the other side of that quantity problem quicker, right? So I think, this is my personal belief, is that I believe that in the very near future, there's going to be a much, much more weighted degree or importance given to verification of skills, experience, qualifications, and those types of things, right? So like, I believe that right now, like anyone can go into ChatGPT, anyone can use any of these tools that auto apply to jobs for you, that draft your specific resume for a specific job. Like it might not even care if it's really like honest and true to who you are. But again, I believe this needs to exist because on the other side of this, there's going to be these verification tools that allow people to say, I am who I say I am, and here's how you can verify this, right? I did go to this school. I did earn this degree. I have worked here. I have, taken these courses. I do have these skills, and they're all third-party verified. And like, I don't know, is that going to be a blockchain thing? Is that going to be like, a third-party verification system with metadata embedded into digital badges? Like, I don't know, right? I don't know what that looks like, but I know that we need these tools that are expanding quantity to help us get to quality quicker. The reason that you might not want to apply using these ones that send out 500 applications is because there's a certain way that AI in its current iteration, right? And a lot of these tools that they're just kind of like sitting on top of ChatGPT, it all starts to sound the same after a while, right? And so I believe that we're very close, if it doesn't already exist, for a recruiter to just be like, can I just filter out everything that was generated by ChatGPT or everything that sounds the same so I can focus on these other potential candidates? I'm not sure if that exists, if people will get there. But I believe that there's a world where like everything just kind of starts to sound the same, and that's actually bad for everybody. And so I think if you can have an understanding of what you're looking for and how you match up to those opportunities. And the next piece that I wanted to talk about is actually like where you don't match up, right? Because, you say, hey, give me my score. Okay, I'm an 85 out of 100. Why am I not 100? Like, where are my gaps and how can I address those things? And now ChatGPT is able to say, well, you weren't 100 because of these 2 points. And here's how you can address this in the interview. And here's how you can address this long term. And so I think by you getting a deeper understanding of these pieces of the puzzle, it helps you stand out a little bit because there's a little bit more context as you're pushing your resume and cover letter through, as you're reaching out to the recruiter, as you sit down in front of the camera for your first interview, or sit down across the desk from a real person or whatever. Like, I think that it just helps you understand the process and where you fit in through that process.
Yeah, that's true. And that's kind of a pretty good recap of what we've been talking about, which is also on the guide that we're going to share and attach to these videos, where you're going to see how you can first identify those gaps. Second, identify how you can fit into a particular set of jobs. And then what I wanted to ask you, Ryan, is after you do that, after you take ChatGPT, expand your job search, then use it to identify your gaps and perhaps see the jobs where you're a good match. What should you do next? What's the next logical step?
So once you've got jobs that you want to apply to, you understand how you fit, you understand where you don't fit, you're able to address those in an interview, and you're able to address that maybe long term. I think it's actually time to start applying to some jobs, right? So taking that information and start to either like tweak your resume on based on what you've learned, but more importantly, like crafting a cover letter if it's required or optional for those jobs that you want to apply for. Crafting that cover letter and using ChatGPT to help you craft that cover letter. Not just like write me a generic cover letter for this job, but by saying to ChatGPT, like, okay, you have my resume, you have the job, you know where I match, you know where my gaps are. Can you please help me write a cover letter to help me, stand out and to help me really show my enthusiasm and fit for this role. And what I found with cover letters with ChatGPT, especially like as ChatGPT has been getting better over the course of the last few months, it's pretty good at writing like a good cover letter while not trying to jam in all of the context for you. It actually kind of puts in these brackets that says like, okay, in here, like add the context, or in here, add your most recent work history, or in here, add a line about why you really want to work for this company. So it's still giving you the opportunity to personalize that, because at the end of the day, like, again, we don't want just like ChatGPT doing all of the heavy lifting, writing every piece of content for you, and you not really understanding how you fit into that process. So I find that with cover letters, with the right prompt, it'll give you a good foundation for cover letters, and then kind of placeholder text that you're able to swap out for, again, your work history, the reason you're enthusiastic about that role. And so that would be my next step, is like, okay, you've got my resume, you know where I fit, you know where I don't fit. I want to apply to these jobs, these 3-4 jobs, whatever. Can you please craft a cover letter based on those things for each one of the jobs that I want to apply to?
Yep. And I think you made a really good point there, and it's that you have to review what ChatGPT throws at you. Like, I know that it's tempting for some job seekers to just copy and paste and be as efficient as possible, but ChatGPT is sort of an assistant, but you still have to review what you're getting from it. And that's actually, I believe that's what's going to make you stand out from the bots. Because ChatGPT, we can talk about this later on, but ChatGPT sometimes it's a little bit lazy. So it's true. So the shorter the prompt, ChatGPT is always going to come up with something. If you say to ChatGPT, hey, write for me a resume, it's going to come up with a resume and it's going to invent part of your resume. But the more concrete you get and the more like specific you get and the more you ask from ChatGPT, the more you're going to get from it. So I guess my point there is, do not just settle for the first thing that ChatGPT throws at you and copy and paste it in your application, but always review what you're doing, especially in your cover letter and your resume, which are like your first presentation cards. So that's very important. And we do have a prompt for cover letters in the guide as well, if you want to check it out. It has like all the specifics that Ryan was talking about, where you're gonna insert your first name, you're going to put all of your descriptions, you're going to tailor it for you. But once you put that prompt into ChatGPT, you should be able to get a pretty decent starting point for a cover letter.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought that up too, because I know there's a lot of discussion around how people just assume that ChatGPT is right? Like you put something in, it's like it just comes back at you. It's just matter of fact. There's the text, and a lot of people, oh, I guess this is the truth. But pose the questions, ask for revisions, ask for alternatives. And I think one of the things that I've become accustomed to doing is like, if I'm asking it to write a piece of content, I actually play with tone. So it'll write it one way and I'll say, can you write that, but like in like a little bit more of a friendly tone? Can you write that in a sarcastic tone? And you'll see sometimes it just kind of goes off the rails. I don't know if you've seen the meme of, I think it's Steve Buscemi. That's what you say his last name, but he's like, hey, cool kids. And he's like clearly an old man in like a high school hallway with, I think he's got like his hat flipped up. But like, there's some times where ChatGPT just comes across as like a 56-year-old trying to pose as an 18-year-old if you're telling it to be like trying to be cool. So it can go off the rails a little bit. And I'm not saying that 56 is not young, and I'm not saying that it can't use. All I'm trying to say is you'll know. When you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, this sounds like somebody trying to fit into a group that it's not a part of, and really a stretch with some of the vocabulary or the words that that it's using.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes, as we were saying, it can get repetitive at some point. So ChatGPT, I think it just has so much knowledge, but there's going to be a point where in the future, everything's going to sound the same. So actually trying to guarantee that you put your own sauce to ChatGPT later on, I think that's super important. But then going back to that journey. So we've talked about finding jobs, analyzing your resume against those jobs, drafting a cover letter with ChatGPT. And let's suppose that you just sent your application to employers. Like you've used ChatGPT up to that point. You have reviewed the guide that we shared. You used the prompts, and through ChatGPT, you sent your applications. What can you do next with ChatGPT? Is there something that ChatGPT could provide you after the application process?
Yeah, I'd say there's still a few more things, right? So like if we think about this from a natural kind of flow perspective, like after you apply to a job, like what would you do as the next logical step? And for me, I know if I'm applying to a job, I'm probably going to want to follow up with the hiring manager or the recruiter in some way, shape, or form, whether that's an email or whether that's a LinkedIn message. And I have friends in recruitment and talent acquisition who actually hate that because they get bombarded with a bunch of messages. But me personally, that's what I would do. Me personally, I would likely film a video, right? Like that's how I would approach this. Let's say, hey, I'm Ryan. I just applied to this. Really stoked for this opportunity. Can't wait to get a chance to talk to you about it, blah, 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 blah. And so I might use ChatGPT to help write a script for a video. I know not everybody is comfortable on video. So what I would suggest is like use ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT that you just applied to those jobs. And now you actually want to reach out to the recruiter, just introduce yourself and like affirm or restate or how enthusiastic you are about that position or about the company or their mission or whatever it is that you've kind of held on to or you've identified is a real match for you. So I would say something along the lines like, hey, ChatGPT, I applied to this job. I want to reach out to the recruiter on LinkedIn, and I want to make sure that the message isn't spammy, but helps, again, restate my enthusiasm for this role. Can you help come up with like a 1 or 2 line message that I can put in my connection request on LinkedIn, or 1 or 2 sentences that I can throw into an email and send off after my application has been submitted. So I would use it as part of the follow-up of the post-apply follow-up. Definitely.
And it's interesting with recruiters because, as you were saying, some of them do like to receive follow-ups. Some of them may hate that. So it's a kind of, it's a one situation where like at a personal level, every recruiter is different. So that's kind of a tricky one. But I personally like sending follow-ups as well because it's an additional way of standing out with that recruiter. But as we were saying, the way in which you do it really matters. So now that you mentioned video, I think it's a great way to do it. As you were saying, some professions even more than others will feel more comfortable with sending videos or not. But definitely, if you decide to follow up and if you think that it's your thing, ChatGPT can help you. And we have a prompt in the guide that can help you draft a message for LinkedIn, for a video, for an email follow-up, where you're going to be able to not sound spammy, but actually have that extra touch point with a recruiter. And who knows, maybe you get the interview after that, which I think it's like that's the next natural step. So after you send your application, you've done your follow-up, everything goes well, and you land an interview, which could be a moment where you feel like overwhelmed and you don't know how to prepare. So I guess my next question for you, Ryan, is how can we use AI to prepare our job interviews?
Yeah. Love this question because I actually love going through this process with ChatGPT and I wish my wife could be in here talking about this, because she like literally came into my office one day and she's like, "Who are you talking to?" Because she heard me full on having a conversation with a woman who was ChatGPT. Like, it was my phone, I had it on speaker, because on the app on the ChatGPT app, there's actually an option to chat with your voice with ChatGPT, and it's really natural. Like, aside from like a few like long gaps, it's like computing or whatever, like it comes off pretty natural. So actually, I think this is like the perfect next step, in my opinion. Again, if I was going through this process as a job seeker, I send out some applications with resumes, tailored cover letters, some tailored follow-up messages or videos or whatever. Now maybe I get a call back for one or two of those for an interview for one of those two of those jobs. Now I would go to ChatGPT, and maybe you start on the web or whatever, but I would start with a prompt that's typed, and I would say, "Hey, I've got a job interview. Here's my resume, and here's the job description for the job that I'm interviewing for, and here's the company that I'm interviewing at," or whatever. "I want to have a mock job interview for this job with you using voice," right? So I seed it with that prompt, and then my next prompt is going to be actually, hitting the headphone icon on the ChatGPT app, which will enable voice. And I'll say, I want you to ask me a series of interview questions based on what you understand from my resume and what you understand from the job description, as if you're interviewing me for this role. Right. And then it does its little computing thing, and then it starts asking you questions, and maybe you tell it, "Ask me follow-up questions as you wish," right? Like however many follow-up questions, whatever. Maybe you say, "Ask me only 5 questions," or whatever. But you set the parameters for the interview, and then you start talking and you ask it to interview you. It starts interviewing you. And again, like, this part is so critical because, up until this type of technology existed, you kind of relied on like, forums where people maybe had an interview at those companies and, said their interview experience, or gave some specific questions, or maybe you have a career counselor or a guidance counselor or a friend that you're like, "Hey, can you like do a mock interview with me?" And it always feels a little bit weird, and you probably feel a little bit self-conscious, where this is like, get in, put up the repetitions, do it as many times as you want. Or as many times as it needs for you to feel comfortable and prepared for that interview. And the best part about it is, like, ChatGPT might not ask you the exact questions that the company's going to ask you, right? But what this process helps you with is like reminding yourself what you've done, what you've achieved, how you've approached problems, what you're willing to do, what your mission is, what your values are, like whatever it is for the job that you're interviewing for. But it really helps you get comfortable with stating those things out loud. And for me, like, I can just imagine the amount of confidence it brings up. And like, I've gone through that process as we were building out the guide, and as Esteban, as you and I have been talking about this now for the last month. Like, I've gone through the process a bunch of times using voice on ChatGPT, saying, "Here's my resume, here's some jobs that I've actually like mock applied to, go ahead and do the interview." The interviews were good. I sent some of the interviews off to my friends who are in the space, who do job interviews for the types of roles and to say like, "Hey, what do you think about this job interview?" And the feedback that I get is like, "This is how we would do our interview." Like, yes, it's missing a few culture questions, or yes, it's missing a few very specific things about the tech stack that we use or whatever. But a lot of these questions are questions that we'd see in an interview. And you can imagine like just the sense of cheat code that you would have going into a job interview, and they ask you a question that ChatGPT asks you 3 or 4 times during your mock interviews. Like you feel like, yes, like we did it, chat. And like, if only they were there to high five, but like, that's the feeling, like I did it. You know what I mean? So the next logical step for me in summary is like, let's get a real job interview using our voice done with the ChatGPT app by hitting that little headphone icon. Again, this requires a paid subscription. Like this isn't like, we're not sponsored by ChatGPT. It's just in order to access those features, you need to pay. And if I was a job seeker, I'd probably do that for a month or two. It's $20 a month. Probably do that for a month or two while I'm in my job search, like the core of it.
Definitely. And you can even share your subscription with a couple of friends if you are all looking for a job. You can even use the same account to leverage your applications, and it's going to get way cheaper.
Hey, you said that, not me.
We're going to edit this part. But yeah, I think you made a really good point there with the voice app, because that's something I didn't know about. Just like if you didn't tell me about this voice app that ChatGPT had, I wouldn't have found out. And it's pretty useful. I tested on different languages. It works perfect. And as we were saying, it asks you questions that you're likely going to find in a job interview. Like it cannot guarantee that those are the questions that you're going to get, but it is pretty close. So it is a pretty good way to use voice, not only text, to prepare for your job hunt as well. So make sure that you check out that voice app that ChatGPT has to offer as well. And then, yeah, just to recap the whole thing. So we've gone through the process of finding potential jobs and applying to jobs and following up and preparing for interviews. It's pretty much like an end-to-end process that we cover in this guide. What would be, Ryan, if I can ask you, the one thing you would like job seekers to keep in mind or to remember after listening to this conversation?
Yeah. Experiment, right? Like that's what I think that I would want people to keep in mind. Like be curious with this type of technology. Don't assume that it's right. Don't assume that it knows everything for truth, but be curious. If it gives you a response, ask why it gave that response. If it gives you a number, ask why it gave you that number. How did it come up with that number? If it asks why it gave you these steps, ask why it gave you those steps. Like the things that like you might not have the flexibility to ask in like to a real person in a real life setting, you can do that with chat. You can take the time to like think about something for a week, right? And then come back to the chat that you had opened and just like pick up where you left off a week ago, right? Like I think just be curious and experiment, right? Like the guide that we're talking about, if you do take a look at it, there are prompts in there. And for like, I want you to question those prompts. Like, are those the best prompts to help you, achieve the thing that you're trying to achieve at the current step of your job search journey, right? Like be curious and just experiment with this type of technology, because I think it's opening doors that, we haven't been able to have access to, as just the regular average person on the street. We now have access to these types of tools, and they're incredible if we use them the right way and if we're curious enough to kind of figure out what works for us.
Yep. And I agree that experimenting should be thing number one. And then if I could leave you with my 2 cents in there, also critical thinking, it's important. So when you do these experiments, don't take what Chat is saying for granted. AI is a great tool. It's going to help you in your job hunt. We explain how step by step on our guide. But after you use it, make sure that you are always thinking about the responses you're getting, that you are tailoring your applications and making sure that the things that you're putting in there actually make sense. So I think that's super important too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but we're super excited about this guide. We're going to leave the link below so that you can share it, use it, test it out. If you have any comments about the results that you're getting, or if this guide was useful for you, we'd love to hear about that. We'd love to get your feedback on this guide. And we really, really hope this guide is going to help you leverage AI to, send better applications. And hopefully it can be your companion for your job seeking journey. So thank you so much for listening today. My name is Esteban Sanchez again. I was with Ryan Porter, head of product at CareerBeacon. And it is such a pleasure for us to be here launching this guide today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Esteban. This was a really great time. Look forward to doing another one of these soon.